Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're getting into some insane true Reddit threads, and oh boy, today's Reddit threads are deranged, unhinged, and like the title says, insane. So you're gonna want to make sure to stick around, and I appreciate you stopping by. It means the world. To make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. The channel subscriber goal is 1 million subscribers before the end of the year, so please subscribe. And these Reddit threads just have me on the edge of my seat the entire time, so I'm excited to get into it. And yeah, without further ado, make sure you grab a drink, grab a snack, and let's get into some insane true Reddit threads. My husband, 32 male, is convinced I, 26 female, am pregnant. I'm not, but he won't believe me. What do I do? And just a quick warning, this Reddit thread is just very depressing and disturbing, and let's get into it. I'm truly at a loss here. This situation has gotten worrying, and I don't know what to do with it. Since about a week ago, my husband became convinced I'm pregnant. I have no idea why, because I'm not. We haven't even started trying, though we do have plans in the future. We were just making conversation, and yeah, I did mention feeling tired, but that's all. A few hours later, he just came in so excited. I told him I'm not, but he won't let it go. He has made remarks about how happy he is, what a wonderful mother I'll be, what our baby will be like. Not all the time, but it has come up multiple times a day. I told him I'm not. I even took a test because even I started wondering, and it was undoubtedly negative. I showed him and he just got annoyed. Said tests can be wrong. He didn't speak to me for the rest of the evening. The next morning, he acted as if nothing happened. When I tell him I'm not, he just kind of shuts me out. I lost my stuff yesterday when we were in bed, and he put his hand on my stomach. Told him he's acting crazy. I'm not pregnant, and his behavior is scaring me. He went to sleep in the guest room after that and left for work early in the morning. I haven't seen him or spoken to him today. I'm just at a loss. I don't know where this obsession is coming from. I even asked him if I gained weight, if that's what has gotten him confused. He assured me I didn't. I'm thinking of contacting his parents or maybe a therapist or something. I honestly don't understand what's happening, and I'm worried about my husband. And then the OP makes a quick update to the post and says, "Thank you all for the replies. I didn't expect all of this. It's been overwhelming and I'm incredibly grateful." He's asleep next to me right now, and I keep going through all the comments. My husband is one of the kindest people I have ever met. I promise you all that he's not trying to manipulate me or would do anything to hurt me, but that does make me believe something is really wrong. I'll contact my and his parents in the morning once he's left for work. Maybe go stay with my mom for a bit, though I hate the idea of leaving him like this. I also definitely will make an appointment with my doctor for a blood test. Thank you all for the advice. And now let's get into some of the top comments. One person says, honestly, this is the kind of delusion that could easily lead to him becoming violent. I don't know if he will, and I'm so sorry this is happening to you, but I think that your number one priority needs to be getting out. This isn't a talk to him situation. This isn't a work it out. This is quite literally a run for your life, and get someone else to help him afterwards kind of situation. I do not think it is an overreaction to move out with zero prior warning and not tell him where you're going. Then after you're out, call his parents and tell them what's going on. I know you're probably thinking your husband wouldn't do anything like that. He's not violent. He wouldn't hurt you. There are two possibilities here. He is either experiencing psychosis/delusions or he isn't. If he is experiencing psychosis, then this is not your husband. This is some rogue part of his mind that is taking over. His perception of reality is quite literally wrong, and there is no amount of love or care for you as enough to overcome the fact that what he sees in the world is not what is real. The second possibility is that he's not experiencing any form of psychosis or delusions. This is honestly the scarier possibility in my eyes, because that means he's intentionally trying to manipulate you, probably in order to control you and prevent you from leaving, and he may possibly forcibly impregnate you. And then the OP replies and says, "Oof, this reply hit me hard. I appreciate it a lot. I'm very torn. I love my husband very much and I'm worried about him right now, but I am feeling increasingly uncomfortable at my home as well." And then another commenter says, "To me, this sounds really pretty ominous. I'll tell you why, but I'm going to explain my own background before. I have multiple degrees with a medical and psychology background, and I've written a bit about wartime psychology, prisoners of war, and brainwashing. So yes, this may sound extreme, but there's something about this that genuinely horrifies me. So a conditioning tactic to re-educate prisoners of war is that you insist on an event. Naturally, they're going to be like, what? That didn't happen. So you take something away, insist again, take it away, insist again, take it away, etc. Eventually, the prisoner of war is going to be missing so much stuff, they will eventually be like, oh well, fine. And then you give them something. Then you insist something else, etc. Basically what occurs is this scenario of repeatedly removing and giving quality of life things like comfort, food, stability, is that in the long term, it, number one, trains the person to view the person with the accusations as a key to survival. And number two, it trains the victim to believe anything the individual accuses them of. The reason this only works in wartime circumstances for prisoners is because the prisoner has no choice but to endure it. They can't just leave. So the reason this disturbs me is because his behavior knowingly or unknowingly follows this behavior. He says you're pregnant, insists it, and then diminished happiness. He comes back saying you're pregnant again. You show the test. Now he only withdraws happiness but alienates you by moving to another room and taking away feelings of belonging in your own house. Now he takes his presence away, leaving you alone in your house as a stranger. Yet you know, if you were to say, okay, I am pregnant, suddenly all of that would return. So he insists you're pregnant, takes something away and gives you time to think. Then tries again, you say no, more taken away and more time. Okay, are you going to play along now? The only difference is you are able to leave at any time. But it is actually concerning that if this is a deliberate tactic, it's because he's decided that you can actually not go anywhere. There's actually something really wrong here in my opinion. Not trying to scare you, but either this is on purpose or he has lost a grip on reality, and neither are safe for you to be around right now. Edit, I'm no longer discussing my credentials. You can say I work for McDonald's. Believe me, I don't actually care. Sorry, OP, for the long chatter on your thread. If you'd like to discuss in DM, argue, or whatever, please send me one. No problem. And then another user says, the first time I got pregnant by my husband, he knew before I did. He had a feeling. Home test said negative, but a blood test showed positive. And the OP responded and said, oh my, that's wild. Either way, I'll meet with my doctor, if only to have some conclusive proof that I am not. And then the OP makes a mini update the next day, and it reads, things escalated yesterday, but I'm with my mom and his parents are at our place. And then one user responds and says, so you are safe? That is a relief. I hope your husband gets the help he needs, because it is pretty obvious he needs to talk to a professional. And the OP says, yes. Thank you for asking, when responding to, are you safe then? So, a very concerning update. But then we get a more in-length update 2 days later. And it reads as follows. Hi everyone. I hope it's okay I post this update. I really appreciate everyone asking if I'm safe, and I am. I wish I could give clear answers, but I can't. Things escalated when I tried to speak to him. Keeping some of y'all's advice in mind, I sat him down and explained to him that I'd love to have kids with him in the future, but that I'm not pregnant right now, and that his insistence worries and scares me. I told him we could go to the doctors together if that would put his mind at ease, or I could take another test in front of him. I was just hoping to snap him out of it somehow. He got very agitated, said many hurtful things, and accused me of being a liar many times, that I'm trying to keep our baby away from him, and so on. Nothing made sense, and I wasn't feeling safe anymore. I knew my husband would never harm me in any way, but that wasn't my husband. Things got worse. He did hurt me, but nothing permanent or even emergency care worthy. I also know that if he was in his right mind, he would have never done anything like this. I called mine and his parents, and I'm now staying with my mom. He did seem to calm down a bit when his parents arrived. I haven't seen or spoken to him since then. His mother, she's an angel, is keeping me posted about everything. We all agree something is very off about him, and we don't know what it is. But he hasn't agreed to getting himself checked out in any way. I don't know how they'll go about it, but they say, and I painfully have to agree, that it's best to keep my distance for a bit, as most of it is aimed at me. I'm safe, so is he. I miss him so much, and I just want an answer as to why he's being like this. I keep trying to figure out if there were signs before, or what I did wrong. Thank you all for the replies. They were a great help. It's so kind you cared to ask if I'm safe. And now let's get into some of the top comments on this update. One user says, let's pray it's not drugs, since he refuses to get checked out. I'm so sorry, OP. I hope everything gets better soon. I don't know if going back to him is a good idea though. He physically hurt you. And the OP responds and says, I do think that whatever is causing this is the reason he hurt. We've been together for some years now, and he's never even raised his voice at me until this. And another user says, "Thank you for letting us know you're safe. I really hope he agrees to get the help he needs, but it is absolutely in your best interest to protect yourself right now. Good luck." And another user says, "Sounds like he has an undiagnosed mental illness or major trust issues. He should seek out a psychiatrist or therapist or both. As others have mentioned, probably best to see a doctor and rule out other causes also." And another user says, "Oh, woo, I am so glad you left. I'm a psych NP, and this situation terrified me on your behalf. He is not himself, and he is not safe for you right now. He needs to be seen by a medical professional ASAP, like last week. It must happen. If he continues to decompensate/get worse, you may have options for involuntary treatment, depending on where you live. It very well could be a physical medical issue causing the behavior, or it could be a mental health crisis. Either way, if he's physically sound and mentally erratic, start with psych emergency services. Are you in the USA? Does your area have a crisis services team? Ours is called Erie County Crisis Services, and they are available 24/7 for crisis calls, and they also will send out mental health professionals to assess someone in the field and see if it's an emergency/involuntary situation. The downside of an organization like this is they're often overtaxed, and when they aren't able to send an agent who is a mental health professional, they will send law enforcement for a wellness check so not to ignore the situation. You can call the nearest psychiatric emergency room and ask if they have any recommendations. This is another point. There are psychiatric emergency rooms. Most decently sized cities have one. You can call law enforcement, but please be mindful, this choice comes with risk. Especially if you or your husband are people of color, this could be putting his life at risk. If his behavior is dangerous, he could be involuntarily hospitalized or worse, arrested. The best case scenario is getting him to a medical professional now before he ends up in jail and his medical emergency is ignored. So many of my psychotic patients have been arrested, and the delays in care are terrifying. Good luck, OP. Protect yourself first and stay away, but good luck in his long-term recovery and your future reconciliation." And the OP gives us an update 2 days later that says he has apparently agreed to get himself checked out, but I haven't heard anything else. And the OP makes another mini comment 10 days later that says he's in the hospital. Many people will write about it being a medical issue. I'll get more into it at some point, maybe, but first need to see what's going to happen with him. I've seen him a couple of times. Sometimes he's his normal self. Sometimes he can't stand the sight of me. We're managing somehow. And then the OP posts an update the next day, and let's get into it. The update reads, "I don't know if anyone will see this here, but you've all been so kind to keep asking whether or not we're okay. I hope I'll reach you like this. I'm going to keep it short. My husband has a brain tumor." A lot of people commented this, and I feel an immense amount of guilt that I hadn't considered it until then. All the headaches and other symptoms in hindsight we had previously dismissed because of his stressful work situation and so on. I'm beating myself up that I hadn't seen it before. A wonderful team of neurosurgeons, oncologists, and other physicians is figuring out the best approach here, if there is one. We'll hear more in the next days. I've spent more time with my husband. Some moments he's his amazing self, others he's filled with anger. It's difficult, but we're managing. I wouldn't have been able to without the support of our friends and family. I love my husband. This situation is terrifying. In moments of clarity, he's trying to make me laugh, so I don't worry. That's who he is. Thank you for everyone for pushing me to get him checked out. And let's get into the comments. One user says, in his moments of clarity, does he recognize how he's been acting? Or is there always some level of reality distortion? And the OP responds and says, he seems mostly very confused, if that makes any sense. He has apologized, but his mind is just not working with him right now. Another user says, OP, this is not the first time I've seen a thread on Reddit where a brain tumor caused significant behavior changes. I hope the surgeons are able to remove it and your husband's previous personality comes back. Have the doctors given you any info on what to expect after the tumor has been removed? And the OP responds and says, right now, it's the question if it can be removed. There's a lot we don't know right now. The doctors and nurses have been incredibly kind, though. And then we get an update 3 weeks later titled, I'm irrationally angry at my husband for having a brain tumor. The update reads, I can't say these feelings out loud, not to the people around me, so I hope it's okay to do it here. But I'm furious with my husband for getting sick. I know he's not to blame. I know he's suffering. Yet I'm still furious with him. I can't explain it. He is the love of my life. How dare he get sick? How dare he change anything about the wonderful life we have planned? How dare he leave me so much sooner than when we're old and senile? 2 months ago, our life was perfect. How could everything get so horrible so fast? I love him so much it hurts, and because of that, I'm so angry with him right now. I feel like a horrible person. And let's get into some of the top comments. One user says, oh yes, I feel this. Fellow brain tumor partner here. Hi, and I'm sorry you're in this club. The hardest part was that we had a bad year running up to this because his personality changed and we weren't getting along. I was in the process of getting us a couples counselor for fresh eyes on his erratic takes instead of spotting the signs of a tumor. So I'll always carry that guilt with me. But it's a real whiplash on the relationship dynamics. Wait, you didn't mean all that shit? You're just sick, and now our future is all messed up and I'm your carer? He's a lot more back to his rational self now that he's had the tumor resection, but radiation is a bastard too, and chemo, let's be honest. Not sure where you are in the journey with treatment. It sounds pretty fresh. We're about half a year in, so if it's helpful, I can share some insights on what it might be like for the road ahead. And then we get an update 9 days later, and let's get into the next update. It reads, it's 2 a.m. here, so I apologize if this is not very coherent. I'm going to step away from all social media, and I wanted to leave you with a brutally honest update. It's silly, but y'all's support has meant a lot to me. Don't get me wrong. I have wonderful family and friends, but in a way I have to comfort them too. And I can't deal with it right now. My husband is dying. In the 5 weeks since his diagnosis, he's gotten worse quickly. Today, the decision has been made not to continue treatment or even properly start it. He's not strong enough. He has a month, maybe, if we're lucky. I'm furious at the world right now, and I'm furious at him, which makes me an enormous bitch. Because what kind of person is angry at their husband for being ill? I love him so much and I hate him for it. I'm sorry this isn't a better update. I wish you all the best. And let's get into some of the top comments. One user says, "Holy hell, I'm so sorry. I remember hoping it was schizophrenia and not a tumor. I'm still kind of hoping this is someone's creative writing venture, but I'm devastated for you. I know tears from a stranger on the internet aren't really a comfort, but they're still falling for you. I lost my little sister a few years ago. I love her so much. She was my world. I was like a half parent to her. I was planning my life on having her live with me. And after the very quick progression of an unknown illness, she was gone. I still can only imagine what you're going through. I'm so sorry. I hope you're already linked with palliative care. There's some amazing people. Take it literally 1 second at a time, then 1 minute, then an hour, then a day. I was taking it an hour at a time for months after she died, and I still sometimes go day by day. If you can get grief counseling, go ASAP. I did phone sessions, can give you more info if you're in Australia. I mainly use my sessions to just talk about my sister, to tell stories and remember her, to have someone new know her. Sending you love and light." And the OP responds and says, "This comment means a lot to me. Thank you. I'm sorry for what you've been through. Our medical team has been incredible, even dealing with my emotions with a lot of patience. I just wish this wasn't the path we had to take." And then we get a heartbreaking update post 4 weeks later titled, "He passed." He passed on the 16th. We had his funeral shortly after. Thank you for the messages. Wishing you all the best. And then we get another update 4 months later titled "Little Update." And this reads, "Hi friends. I wanted to write a little something here. I don't know if anyone will see it or care. I probably didn't show it properly, but your words did mean something to me. I'm doing okay-ish. Sometimes the grief makes me physically nauseous, but I manage. My friends have been wonderful. For a while, I took a step back from his and my family. I do regret that. I guess I had a hard time dealing with their sadness, but we're mostly doing better now. I have a dog now. My friend had to get rid of him because of her living situation changing and asked me. Saying yes, initially temporary, was the best thing that happened. It gave me a reason to get out of bed, to focus on something else. Now, don't go gifting your grieving friends random pets, but for me, it worked out very well. I've also started working out again since a few weeks, only part-time, but it's going all right. And I recommend therapy for anyone going through this. I resisted at first, then agreed and ended up with a therapist who I didn't connect with. I realized now and stopped again. Eventually, I tried again, and I'm grateful for it. I feel a lot more comfortable and heard with her. It's hard. I'm not gonna lie. I wanted to no longer continue going on. Sometimes I still do, but I feel lighter than I did before. It's getting better. I still cry often, and that's okay, as my therapist would say. One step at a time. Thank you for giving me more kindness than I expected from strangers. And let's get into the top comment. The top comment reads, "Yes, we absolutely still care, and I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm so glad that you cut yourself a break for how you're grieving. As many people told you, anger is a normal part of grief and doesn't make you a monster. It just makes you human." I honestly don't know if it's harder to know that someone is going to pass away or if a spontaneous loss is worse. I wish more people understood that you have every right to fire your therapist and that it's okay to audition potentials. We're here for you, whether you want to talk about rainbows and unicorns or what you had for dinner or your grief, etc. Our support is unconditional. Sending you so many hugs. And then we get one final update 8.5 months later, titled Last Update. And it reads as follows. I've been coming back to this account often lately and decided that it's time to let it go. It's been over a year since we lost him. It still feels surreal, but I just wanted to let anyone who sees this know I'm doing quite okay. I'm working full time. I've started a new hobby and make an effort to spend time with people I love. Most importantly, I realize there's days where I'm enjoying myself again, and I'm so grateful for that. Don't get me wrong. It's still so hard. I miss him every day. I still go to therapy weekly, but I feel like slowly I'm moving in the right direction. Dating is off the table, and that's okay, because I have the best dog to keep me company. Thank you all so much for caring and letting me know and letting be my grieving self here. You've made a huge difference for this stranger. All the love. And like the OP said, this was the last post they ever posted to their profile. And just what a horrible, horrible situation. I mean, it started out as everyone wondering whether this was a manipulation tactic or, schizophrenia or some other, more explainable happening, that why he was acting so weird, why he was thinking the OP was pregnant when she wasn't. And it ended up being a brain tumor that ended up killing him shortly after. And it's just, life is very unfair. It really is. I mean, like, the OP didn't deserve this. The OP's husband didn't deserve this. It's just very, it brings up a lot of questions for like why things like that happen. But I don't know. I'm just kind of speaking here, but like I said, when I first read the title, this was a very disturbing and depressing Reddit thread. And I'd like to hear what you guys think down below about this. And I just hope that the OP and her family can find some, find some peace. And I hope that the OP's husband rests in peace. Just such a sad, sad situation that, I was not expecting when I first read through that first post. I'm like, oh, is this some sort of, just weird guy? And it just, takes a turn like that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just yapping, but yeah, super, super depressing. But on to the next one. Am I the asshole for refusing to host Easter dinner if my nephew is invited? Throwaway because wife knows my account. I, 37, and my wife, 35, have been arguing about this all week. Our nephew, who is 22, has always been troubled. Even though sister-in-law 44 and brother-in-law 48 have always treated him well. Some examples of his unsettling behavior. He was caught feeding one of brother-in-law's horses avocados, poisonous to horses to make it sick. I have dogs and don't want him to hurt them as well. He demands to be called the names of 2 specific fictional characters. He believes he is these characters, reincarnated. If you call him by his real name or refuse to go along with his illusions, he becomes aggressive. He carries around a plushie of one of these characters everywhere. There is a hole in the back. The hole is stained. I have tried not to jump to conclusions about what he does to that plushie and failed. It smells rancid, and honestly, just thinking about the thing makes me want to vomit. I've tried so hard to be patient with his quirks, as my wife puts it. What really pushed me over the edge was an incident that occurred a few weeks ago. For context, wife has struggled with infertility for our entire marriage, and we have given up on having our own kid until we recently discovered she is pregnant. Given the fact that she is 35, we have been surprised and overjoyed. A few weeks ago, wife started randomly getting rude texts from nephew, insulting our baby. One text implied that our baby would have fetal alcohol syndrome due to my wife's previous drinking problem. Even though she has been sober for years, I wanted to call up that insensitive brat and tear into him. But wife insisted we gently let him know via text that we didn't appreciate his comments. When he kept going and my wife started crying, I called sister-in-law. She was able to shut him down and get him to apologize. I have no idea what the hell got into him, but I suspect it has to do with his hatred of women. Wife believes that he may be on the spectrum / have undiagnosed mental illness and that he needs to be treated patiently. I think he has been coddled his entire life and it has only made him worse. I think if someone doesn't put their foot down, his behavior will escalate into something dangerous. Here's where I may be the asshole. Each year, wife and I host Easter dinner for her entire family. Wife has already forgiven nephew for the incident and is insisting we invite him so that he isn't isolated from his family, something she believes will worsen his behavior. I see her reasoning, but enough is enough. I refused. I said she is being a doormat like everyone else in the family when it comes to him, and that our man-child of a nephew can't just make her cry and get away with it with an empty apology. Some of my friends are saying that I am being controlling and that I can't stop her from seeing her own family. I feel like I'm going insane. Am I the asshole? And now let's get into some of the top comments. One user says he has a history of poisoning, he has a history of hating women, he has a history of mentally abusing your wife, he has a history of saying the baby will have birth defects. It seems like it would be fully within his capabilities to poison your wife to hurt the baby. Sounds crazy, but this guy definitely is. And the OP responds and says, "This is exactly what I'm afraid of. I feel like nobody in the family wants to admit that his problems aren't just him having quirks. They're warning signs of potentially dangerous behavior later on, and they need to be dealt with. I'm glad I'm not alone in thinking this. I was starting to wonder if I was overreacting. Like the plushie thing and him thinking he is certain fictional characters is one thing, but the animal cruelty and anger towards women is what really has me concerned." Another commenter says, "Yes, the animal cruelty is a clear sign of him being an actual psychopath. The issue is how to make your wife see this without pushing it. Most people don't want to believe their family is capable of such cruelty. You'll have to be very, very gentle if you intend to discuss it at all. Worst comes to worst, very carefully watch the food and drinks. Personally, I can't believe anyone in the family puts up with that utterly disgusting plushie. I mean, how can they expect you to bring your future child around that?" And the OP responds and says, "His parents got it for him when he was a kid. They thought it was cute when he brought it everywhere. I think on some level, they still see him as a child, so they kind of refuse to acknowledge what he does to that thing." Another commenter says, "Not the asshole, but honestly, the whole family are for allowing this to continue. How long has he behaved like this for? I can't believe no one has taken him to a doctor. I mean, just the fact that this adult man is carrying around a stinky, stained plushie of a fictional character is bad enough, but then trying to hurt a horse? And no one thinks that's worth looking into?" And the OP responds and says, "His mom does try to push him to go to therapy and to get a job, and he usually will get a therapist for a few weeks. And then she is back to begging him to get therapy. She didn't want to push him when he was younger, but now that he is an adult, she cannot make him do anything. At least he has learned, after getting fired for this previously, not to take his plushie to the job he manages to hold down for a month or two." And then some people ask if the OP knows if he's harmed or hurt any other animals. And the OP says, "I do not know if he has harmed other animals. He was actually vegan for a few months at one point and was very anti-animal cruelty. I don't know why he flipped and tried to hurt one of the horses. And honestly, the fact that he can go against his own supposed values like that also scares me. I think I need to emphasize to my wife that this is a matter of safety rather than me just being mad at our nephew for his comments, although that is also a part of it. My wife has always wanted kids so badly, and before she got pregnant, I think she projected a bit of that onto her nephew as we watched him a decent amount when he was younger. I get that he's family and she loves him, and it's hard to admit that someone you love could be a danger to you, but she also has our baby to think about. I think I will show her these comments in the morning after I make her teen apologize for calling her a doormat / getting upset while arguing. I need to approach this a bit more gently, as you guys are confirming for me that it really is more serious than him just being rude." And then the OP makes an update 13 hours later, and let's get into it. The update reads, My wife and I had a long talk this morning in which I made it clear that I was more concerned about her and our baby's safety than anything. I also apologized for resorting to name calling last night. Wife isn't a doormat. She just has a lot of love and patience for her family. It was a hard talk with some tears from both of us, but she agreed that this has escalated to a point that may become dangerous, in part due to the enabling from all of us. Honestly, I am also guilty of coddling him, especially when he was a kid. It's hard to admit when someone you took care of as a kid has grown into someone unsafe to be around, but I think the idea in this comment might work as a way to set boundaries without shutting him off permanently. We are going to call his mother and explain that Easter dinner isn't happening this year if the nephew is coming, and that he is welcome to come over when he has a diagnosis and is stuck with a therapist for at least a couple of months. Thank you all for your advice. And then we get an update post about 2 weeks later, and let's get into it. This series of bizarre events started on Easter and has only gotten weirder since. For those of you who did not read / don't remember my original post, my nephew was banned from our recent Easter dinner due to a concerning pattern of behavior, including recent disturbing text messages to my pregnant wife about her unborn child. Since then, his parents eventually agreed to not bring him after a lot of arguing. Sister-in-law, nephew's mother, eventually admitted that he may need professional help and that wife and I may have some reason to be worried for our safety around him. That's concerning. And on Easter, our worries were proven more than reasonable. He showed up uninvited, using brother-in-law's car. His parents came in sister-in-law's car. Our dinner was interrupted by aggressive pounding on our door. I don't know how to put this without it sounding insane, so here it goes. Nephew was at our door, holding a sword and dressed as the Joker. He tried to say something, but I slammed the door in his face and told everyone inside what was going on. Chaos, predictably, ensued. Brother-in-law, a generally calm guy who I have never seen freak out or get angry, turned beet red and went outside. He ended up literally chasing nephew around our house, screaming at him in an attempt to get him to leave. Neighbors came outside and sister-in-law went into damage control mode, talking down one concerned neighbor from calling the police somehow. He dropped his sword in the chase and brother-in-law tackled him on our front lawn. They got him into his sister-in-law's car somehow and they left with him. Easter dinner was ruined. Wife was in tears. I was so mad, I was shaking. Good news is that this was a wake-up call for sister-in-law and brother-in-law. Under threat of them withdrawing financial support, nephew has agreed to seek therapy and surrender access to his Tumblr blog, which he previously would spend hours a day posting on. His mother went through it and found a lot of alarming posts, including content about his hatred for women, screenshots posted of his text exchange with my wife with captions bragging about his hurtful behavior, and several disturbing fan fictions with violent, intimate content. They believe him being too online is worsening his behavior and are hoping that limiting his access and forcing him into therapy will help. Thank you for all who convinced me to stand my ground in the comments of my original post. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, I think it's a little more than seeing a therapist and we take away a little social media. That young man needed the cops called and a 5150 hold. I hope y'all start putting things like security measures in place. Good luck, and you're still not the asshole. And the OP respondent says, I might suggest that 5150 hold to his parents, but his mother is already worried that taking away his phone was too much, as if he didn't show up at my house with a weapon. And another user says, not the asshole. Look, for all I care, you can be a rabbit identifying as a frog or believe you are Superman. If you aren't hurting anyone and can function in society, have at it, but this guy is scary and dangerous. He hurts animals, hates women, and has a false sense of reality. The family has enabled this behavior for years. Nope, I wouldn't want him anywhere near your pregnant wife, and later your child. He is going to hurt someone. And the OP responds and says, funnily enough, you almost guessed which two characters he identifies as. Kermit, the frog to be exact. Yes, as in the Muppet. And the Joker. Not Superman, but from the same source material. And then one commenter actually finds the OP's nephew's Tumblr account, and I'm not going to expose what the username is or the link to their profile, but I'm gonna read a few posts from here because yeah, it is weird, disturbing, and just strange. One of his posts reads, I still have hot glue burns all over my mouth from trying to kiss my sock puppet with tongue while the glue was still wet. It's kind of like my own personal Joker scars. Guess this is my life now. The clown paint just never comes off. I feel more badass than ever before. And also, other posts confirm that the plushie he has was being used for what the OP was, thinking it was being used for. Yeah, just gross, weird, really, really weird. I mean, I just keep scrolling through this post or just through this profile, and very strange. He has such a interest in puppets, Kermit the Frog, and the Joker. It is very, very strange. And there's actually a picture of his doll, which is Kermit dressed as the Joker. Very, very strange. And then we get an update 8 days later from the OP, and the update is titled Final Update, hopefully. First and second post of my profile for those of you who are out of the loop. Thank you for the kind messages and advice in the comments. The situation is being taken seriously by brother-in-law, wife, and myself. Sister-in-law still has her head buried in the sand a bit, but we are working on it. At the very least, she has not lifted the phone ban, and she has been looking through his Tumblr as well as his other social media to see if he really had violent intentions on Easter. Sister-in-law still believes nephew that he only came to talk. In any case, he had his first therapy session with the new therapist this week. He has promised to stick with it, mostly because sister-in-law said she would return his phone if he stuck with it long enough. Not sure how long enough is. The plus side of him being a man-child is that he is either unwilling to just buy himself a new phone with the little money he has, or he doesn't realize that he is an adult who can gain financial independence, so his mother can't threaten to take things away from him like he's a child in timeout. He has told his mom to tell us that he's very sorry for his behavior and that it won't happen again. I'm skeptical. Wife is still holding out hope but refuses to see him unless he shows substantial improvement. Brother-in-law is looking into resources for places he can get nephew committed should that become necessary, but he believes that the situation is under control as long as sister-in-law doesn't budge. They have also confiscated his sword, and I don't think he has any access to other weapons. I was also sent a link to nephew's Tumblr blog. Sister-in-law has already seen it on his phone, but did not want to share its contents because she feels like we have villainized her baby enough. I went through his blog with my wife and didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or pour bleach into my eyeballs. His blog basically confirmed what you all have been trying to tell me about his pattern of violence and hatred for women. He posts a lot about how females are all entitled and how he hates ever having to interact with them. Additionally, he seems to be stalking one of his exes, which is a whole other layer of concerning. He also writes intimately explicit fan fiction about Muppets, which is not a safety concern but has permanently ruined the entire show for me. Sorry this update isn't very exciting, but a lot of people express concern for my family and I's safety, so I'm letting you all know the situation is being handled and everyone is okay. For those wondering about the plushie of Kermit, it has gone missing according to sister-in-law and brother-in-law. I hope it stays missing forever. And now let's get into some of the top comments. One user says, "Hi OP, you had correct instincts here. Nephew is absolutely mentally unwell. The patterns of violence scares me to even read. The thing about the horses, if he was trying to feed it avocados to make it sick, he could have killed it. Horses can't vomit. The Muppet fan fiction and the other sort of plushie is so gross. That's something that is beyond a little unwell. People who believe in that stuff are largely mentally unwell, and especially if he decided he's doing it is a literal psycho murderer. I am wondering if he is suffering from some sort of delusional disorder. Granted, that is for the therapist to decide. I agree with the others who've mentioned it. You should invest in a Ring doorbell or other security devices. He might get his phone back and blame you for everything. I looked at his Tumblr and people commented on his Tumblr to blast him, and some people mentioned the Reddit post. If his brain works and with some Googling, he could find these posts. Hope for the best and assume the worst here. I dearly hope sister-in-law will take more action. The nephew is going to seriously hurt someone." I also found the post about the horse on Tumblr, and the OP's nephew post on Tumblr reads as follows. It says, "My father's favorite horse has gotten mysteriously ill. If he dies, maybe I will finally be the favorite son instead of playing second fiddle to an animal." And someone replies and says, "There's so much on there about the horses and his hatred for them. All the logical signs point to him. He 100% did attempt to kill it. In the hashtags, I was starting to get really freaked out as someone with my own horse. I really hope OP is safe and taking precautions." And then the OP actually makes a mini update to their post and says, edit, "People are messaging me saying that he is back to updating his Tumblr account. So that likely means that sister-in-law has gone back on her word. I'm going to call brother-in-law and update him. Also, he is still hiding the plushie somewhere because brother-in-law was trying to throw it away and he can't find it anywhere." And then the OP comes back with another update titled "More Updates," unfortunately, and it reads as follows. "Sorry for the lack of updates. Life has been a bit crazy. Wife and I went no contact with nephew and sister-in-law. which has been hard on wife because she has always been close with her sister. We have kept contact with brother-in-law, keeping him updated if we saw anything concerning on his Tumblr account, as many of you have kept me updated. And boy, did he post concerning stuff. I'm not sure what the last straw was. Possibly when he posted about cutting off part of his coworker's hair and getting fired as a result. But brother-in-law decided he had had enough of sister-in-law's permissive parenting and nephew's destructive behavior going ignored. Brother-in-law has been trying to go harsher on nephew to straighten him out. But sister-in-law throws such a tantrum every time he has tried that he has decided he's had enough. A few days ago, he packed up and left. Now it looks like he and sister-in-law are going to get a divorce. He has been staying with us for a few days, going back once to make sure his horses were put in temporary boarding while he figures his stuff out. He is also working on getting a lawyer. In other news, my nephew has run away from home. He is 22, so I don't know if this means he has finally gotten an apartment or what. All I know is a few hours ago, sister-in-law called brother-in-law in hysterics, crying that he had left a note and that it was brother-in-law's fault. I think that he may have gone to stay with some internet friends, but wife is getting worried as it is 3 a.m. and there is still no sign of him. Actually, I also kind of worried, but I'm trying to stay level-headed and not think of worst-case scenarios. Sorry if this is unclear and sounds rushed, but stuff is still unfolding and this has been a lot to deal with. I will answer any questions y'all have once everything calms down a bit. Edit. Several hours after I made this post, police found nephew in a small forest a few blocks away. He was hiding in the trees, and I guess he was going to try to live there. They returned him to his mom's house. I am exhausted. And now let's get into some of the top comments. One user says, okay, can we also note how weird sister-in-law is being? Why is she acting but also treating like her son is 10? It's weird. It's like she also has some weird mental problems with her son. Like, it's odd and not normal to act this way about a 22-year-old man who is also her son. Like, it's giving me an icky boy mom vibes in a very gross way. Also, kudos to your brother-in-law for finally taking some much needed action. Also, I think you should contact the police. Get everything on file. Nephew may come after police now that he has ran off. He is a danger to others. Stay safe, OP. And someone else says, his Tumblr has a post about how he's going to live in the woods in hope that your brother-in-law will return home. He also has one about collecting herbs and berries to eat in the woods, and that one seems very disturbing. Apparently, he believes he has a natural survival instinct. I don't know if he has done a lot of camping, but I would be concerned since his reality seems not that existent. The fact that your sister-in-law is throwing tantrums unfortunately shows that she is to blame for his behavior. And someone else says, I mentioned a 5150 hold in the comments on your first or second post. Your brother-in-law should be calling the police and hopefully, if they find him, he can be assessed more seriously than his current voluntary therapy sessions. He needs a psychiatric evaluation and treatment, for sure. And then the OP makes another update a few days later titled, Jesus Christ, when will it end? And let's get into it. It reads, at this point, I'm just going to use this account to rant about my insane nephew because venting to my wife just makes her sad about the person he has grown into, which I think is completely fair. So, the good news is that sister-in-law has finally taken action. Brother-in-law has been keeping up with nephew's posts online ever since he found brother-in-law's new apartment and took a crap outside his front door. Long story short, and not super relevant to this current update. Point is, brother-in-law was monitoring the situation from a safe distance and was able to find proof that nephew was becoming dangerous to others. Finally convincing sister-in-law, after some painful conversations and damning screenshots from his blog, that something needed to be done. The screenshots in particular were a series of posts that nephew made in which he challenged a random person online to a duel, giving an exact time and location as well as promising to bring his goddamn sword. Unfortunately, threatening to attack people with swords has become a behavioral pattern for him, so I can't even find it in me to be surprised. I am just so goddamn tired at this point. As some of you smart cookies may already know, telling a large amount of people on the internet your exact location is, drumroll please, stupid and dangerous, especially with the threat of violence, which eventually expanded to him threatening to attack everyone and everything who challenged him at the location he specified. This was his mom's breaking point. So when nephew asked sister-in-law to drive him to his duel, she instead took him to their church. Yep, not therapy, not the police, an evangelical church, a different church than the one sister-in-law goes to because he was banned from that one. Also a long story. He is once again on the internet timeout and being forced to meet with the pastor once every week to bring him back to Jesus or whatever. So at least something is being done. Is this at least a step in the right direction for sister-in-law? I don't even know anymore. And then the OP doesn't update us for a few months, but a few months later, the OP comes back with another post titled Thanksgiving, and it reads as follows. I'm pretty sure that no one is still invested in my petty family drama at this point, but Reddit was a good outlet the last time my nephew showed up to a holiday meal and completely ruined it. So to Reddit I return. Read my other post if you are out of the loop, I guess. First of all, my son was born in early November, and his presence had been such an overwhelming joy in my wife and I's life. We had been so busy with him that we hadn't even thought about whether nephew would be at Thanksgiving until the days leading up to it. We called mother-in-law, who was hosting, and she reassured us he was staying behind and that it was only going to be us and sister-in-law. Small Thanksgiving, but yeah, mother-in-law does not have a lot of family, so we always try to make it to her house when she hosts. Brother-in-law and nephew usually attend as well, but sister-in-law and brother-in-law are recently divorced, and nephew is, well, a danger to society, to put it mildly. So we head over to her house early in the morning for a humble Thanksgiving of 5. Myself, wife, son, sister-in-law, and mother-in-law arriving first. Mother-in-law is cooing over her grandson and holding him when the doorbell rings. In steps sister-in-law, and in steps nephew. Not wearing Joker makeup this time or holding his special plushie, thank God. I am immediately out of my chair, ready to rain fire down and tell this man to get away from here before he has some kind of violent outburst around my newborn. When mother-in-law cuts me off, asking nephew if there is anything he would like to say to my wife and I. Nephew approaches me with a very serious look in his eye, bows at a 90-degree angle, and begins rattling off this insane apology, most of which is being directed at the floor. I really did not catch most of it, but my wife squeezed my hand and looked at me with tears in her eyes. I know you will call me stupid, Reddit, but my hormonal, recently pregnant wife was almost crying with how happy she was to see that nephew had grown as a person. And she had told me earlier in her pregnancy that she hoped our baby would be able to play with him and look up to his older cousin. My wife has taken no contact with our nephew rather hard, as we looked after him a lot when he was little, and I cannot really blame her for folding immediately upon seeing him again. I accepted nephew's apology for his outburst earlier in the year and told him that all family is welcome at Thanksgiving. My wife hugged me, and mother-in-law started saying how excited she was to have both of her grandchildren with her. I kind of got the sense that mother-in-law and sister-in-law planned this behind our backs, but for the sake of the holiday, I was willing to let it go. Maybe he changed. The first hiccup was when mother-in-law was in the kitchen taking the turkey out of the oven. Sister-in-law was holding our son and asked if nephew could hold him. Wife and I firmly said no, but agreed that he could say hi. Nephew leaned in close to get a good look at our newborn and began laughing like a psycho. Like from completely silent to cackling maniacally. He startled my son into crying, and when I reprimanded him, he did not seem apologetic at all, and instead kept doing that weird laugh and saying, "I cannot contain the Joker." I admit I started to lose my cool at that point. I told him he needs to grow up and stop acting like a creep all the time, which seemed to really piss him off. He yelled that he is not a creep and that he has changed a lot since I last saw him. He said that he found God and that he is not a misogynist anymore because he claimed that men are just as vile and humanity is doomed no matter the gender. I called him a mistake and he grabbed the turkey, which mother-in-law had just brought in during the commotion, by the leg. Shrieking at the top of his lungs, nephew swung the turkey like a sledgehammer directly at my head. Mother-in-law stepped in to intervene, which caused the hot, oven-fresh turkey to slam wetly into her hand. Silence for a moment. Then the sizzling of my mother-in-law's skin as the grease of the turkey sticking to her face made quick work of her epidermis, causing her to scream. I regret that I was completely stunned into inaction, but luckily my wife came to her senses quicker than I did, and it was now her turn to chase down my nephew, much like how brother-in-law had this past Easter. She was not as fast as him, given that she had given birth earlier that month, but her yells and threats scared him bad enough that he fled out the door, sister-in-law on his heels. She ended up driving him home, shooting us a nasty text saying my wife overreacted and that his outburst was my fault in the first place. That's crazy. Apparently, we scared her beloved baby boy, 22 years old, so bad that he pissed himself, so I guess he's the real victim. Wife and I took mother-in-law to urgent care, and she has insisted that no charges should be pressed against nephew, even though her face is severely burned from the turkey grease and the impact of the swing gave her a concussion. Oh my God, this guy needs to be locked up. She is not even mad at him and says he is just troubled and that, quote, everyone makes mistakes. I think our mistake was believing my wife, and I can trust her family to stop inviting unstable people around our newborn. I don't want to cut mother-in-law off because she is old and lonely, but I don't want her around our newborn because I do not trust that she will not invite nephew. That being said, I do not want to keep her away from her grandbaby. I know this was long and probably no one's reading this, but If anyone has any advice for how to proceed, I really would appreciate it. And before we get into the comments, like, the OP and his wife are so lucky that the nephew didn't want to attack the newborn baby for whatever reason. Like, it's not good that he swung a turkey and gave his, I guess it would be his grandma, a concussion. Like, obviously that's not good. That's horrible. But, like, thank God he didn't swing the turkey at the baby or freak out and grab the baby or do whatever. I mean, he was wanting to hold the baby. That's terrifying. I mean, he could have easily dropped it or done something horrible. I mean, this guy's a complete psychopath. But let's get into some of the top comments. One user says, unfortunately, I keep up with your nephew's Tumblr account. I think it is against your child's best interest and safety to let him or anyone who defends him in your child's life. There is something very, very wrong with your nephew, and I understand that psych holds did nothing but cause more drama. My suggestion, do not let any of them near your house. If you choose to meet with mother-in-law, it should be in a public place where you can leave, and maybe somewhere with security cameras. If you don't already have security cameras, get them. If possible, get a restraining order against him. Use mother-in-law's urgent care release papers as part of evidence. Do not forgive or relax your guard around him. Don't let your guard down around sister-in-law. Don't let your guard down around mother-in-law. They are supporting a man who is very psychologically unhinged, has a history of threatening behavior and assault. Obviously, it's sad that mother-in-law won't be around for her grandbaby and that she's lonely. Tough luck. She's choosing someone who I can't describe without getting banned from this platform. Good luck. I'm sorry your wife has such a horrible family. Also, it seems as though your nephew may want to dox your baby. Obviously, I cannot trust that Tumblr for any facts, but everything on there is so unhinged. I cannot tell if it's a joke or a threat. And the OP responds and says, "This is good advice. Thank you. I think my wife's family has always been crazy and has a history of excusing bad behavior, particularly from men. So she is a little desensitized to it. Honestly, dealing with my in-laws had normalized this kind of behavior for me too, to some extent. I was unaware my nephew still had an online presence. I will call his mom, not that she'll listen, about this threats of doxing, even if I am confused about what the hell doxing a baby would even accomplish." And someone else says, "Your wife has to accept that he is a danger to all of you. If she cannot, then you're going to have to make some tough choices because you can't keep going on like this." And someone else says, "Your choice is to protect your son or not. Your mother-in-law and sister-in-law refuse to acknowledge that this guy is dangerous. That makes them just as dangerous. Worse, as they enable him and manipulate you and your wife with absolutely no effort. So keep your son safe, or see if it's your baby being flung by the leg next time. Make your choice. I can't believe it's even a hard choice. Get security cameras and don't ever go to mother-in-law's home again. She's also not allowed at your home. No more ambushes. She can see baby at Starbucks if you're so reckless as to keep contact with someone who knowingly and willfully manipulated you into endangering the safety of your baby. Why you stayed when he walked in the door is just the most ridiculously dangerous and bad thing, but it can't happen again. Your mother-in-law does not care enough or respect either of you enough to even protect a newborn. You're the kid's parents. Do better." And this is the last update we have ever received from the OP. And man, I really wonder how this entire saga ended. I wonder if the OP's nephew ended up in prison or jail or in a psych ward somewhere, or I don't know. But what I do know is that the OP's nephew is still posting on his Tumblr. Like I said, I'm not going to link the profile. I'm not going to do anything. Do not contact anyone mentioned in this video. But man, this Tumblr account is beyond disturbing. I can't tell if it's a joke or if he's crazy, but from the entire story we just read and the thread we just got into, it does not seem like a joke. Yeah, this is just the most unhinged Tumblr account I have ever seen before. Like, it's just so weird. Like I said, it's a mix of, Muppet, Kermit the Frog, and the Joker. And he likes the Muppets and wants to make love with the Muppets. Yeah, this is just one of the most insane Reddit threads I have ever read. And yeah, on to the next one. Ayahuasca ruined my life. Originally posted to r/DMT and r/psychosis. And for those of you who don't know what ayahuasca is a traditional psychoactive brew that's been used for centuries by indigenous people of the Amazon rainforest, mainly for spiritual, ceremonial, and healing purposes. And basically, it is a very, very intense psychedelic experience that gives you vivid visions and deep emotional introspection, and just an altered state of consciousness lasting 4 to 8 hours. And many people do ayahuasca for personal growth or being able to look inwards or for mental health challenges. Although doing ayahuasca isn't risk-free, and ayahuasca can trigger severe anxiety or panic that lasts a long time. It can increase confusion, impaired judgment, and prolonged psychological distress. And in some people, especially those with a personal or family history of schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or other psychotic disorders, ayahuasca actually can trigger psychosis or mania. And obviously that is not good, and it can be very, very dangerous, and you can lose your mind. But without further ado, let's get into the story. I just wanted to make sure you guys know what ayahuasca was for those of you who don't know. And the Reddit post is titled, "Ayahuasca Ruined My Life." My story. What happened in this ceremony in Costa Rica? My mind and perception was bouncing back and forth between good and evil. I would see and feel complete magic and light to complete darkness. Eventually, all the light went away, and I became separate from everything and everyone. There was just a void. My personality changed into something else, something terrible. I'm the ceremony. I actually ran away. I left the ceremony thinking that I was also leaving my life, and I would try again in a different lifetime. I felt I had failed life, and my external environment became extremely uncomfortable and unpleasant. The energy in my body felt like poison. Every sound hurt my ears, and even the food tasted bad. I became the ugliest version of myself that I didn't even recognize. I was going through a lot in life at the time, and perhaps it was not a good time for me to go, but who knows why this happened. The psyche is fragile, and things can easily go wrong no matter how prepared you are. Psychedelic psychosis is more common than I knew at the time. After the ceremony, the effects of the ayahuasca did not wear off. They actually became stronger over time. My mind was completely taken over that I could not identify with myself anymore. My mind would break and shatter apart over and over. I would get this constant stream of negative thoughts piercing my head for months, changing my personality over time. I started losing my memories, my values, my perceptions, my mind. I was working with 2 medicine men, but nothing seemed to help. I did everything I could to hold on to myself, but eventually my mind got so hijacked that my former self stopped existing. Intense energy sizzled through my body, and I could not sleep for weeks. My thoughts made me believe I was not ascending, and I'd be trapped in hell for all eternity. I was kicked out of the ceremony of life and was disconnected from life, my heart and spirit. My heart would constantly pound in my chest, my body would shake uncontrollably, and my brain would hurt. My perception of time was completely gone. I do not even remember the plane ride home. I ended up in the hospital from going manic and from constantly screaming that I was doomed for eternity and I would be going to hell. I was constantly planning my own S-word. All I could perceive was how I was going to be tortured for eternity, from the sounds of chainsaws to dogs barking to my teeth falling out and being burned. I was traumatized with fear. I would throw up from screaming for hours, stuck in loops, pacing for hours in distress. I ended up in the emergency 3 times for manic episodes and eventually the psych ward. I have never had mental illness in the past. Now I find it hard to leave the house as I now have major anxiety, depression, and fear. Since then, 8 months later, I no longer feel the effects of ayahuasca and have stabilized, but who I am now compared to who I was is very different. I feel completely disconnected from my heart and spirit. I cannot find joy in anything anymore, not even nature or music. I constantly feel jumbled and confused in this utter lifelessness. All of my thoughts are now negative, and I can't feel anything anymore. I don't feel my emotions except fear and despair. Plus, my creativity is gone. It's like I'm living without my soul. I have no motivation or interests anymore. Just getting out of bed is difficult. I lost my business as an artist and partner through this whole experience. And now let's get into some of the top comments. One user says, were you taking any psych meds prior to the experience? What you're describing is post-manic depression. The same thing happened to me, both SSRI, and I also lost everything. And the OP responds and says, I wasn't on any medication before. I've never had any mental illnesses prior. I'm so sorry that happened to you. I keep hearing more people talk about these encounters, but only after it happened. And the commenter replied again and said, I have heard that even if you have a mild undiagnosed psychotic disorder, so think bipolar, which is fairly common, psychedelics can trigger a sharp onset. And the OP replies and says, for sure, but I have done ayahuasca 5 times prior and nothing was triggered. Another user says, this is happening more and more often since all these shamans that are supposed to protect the ceremony space don't know how to do it and leave people open to energetic parasitism. The only way to heal this is unfortunately through the same plant medicine. Make sure you have a real shaman this time who can identify and remove the pathogen that is now attached to your soul. These things thrive on such energy. You can take ownership of your own being again. However, it will take a long time. If you don't want to consider plant medicine again, some sort of meditation over many years would slowly but surely make space for the real you to inhabit your mind and body again. And the OP replies and says, I'm worried that taking plant medicine again will make me worse. I was only considering it if I don't see any progress in a year. And one commenter smartly says, don't take it again. Fight for footing in the reality you have. And I agree. I don't think the OP should go back and take that medicine or take the ayahuasca since it made her worse. I think she should, see a psychiatrist or therapist or go to the hospital because she clearly has triggered something serious. Another commenter says, any history of bipolar, manic episodes of schizophrenia before this? What you describe happened to me, but I didn't even drink ayahuasca. Was from my traumas surfacing for me to deal with after I got off a lifetime of SSRIs and had a breakdown. And the OP says, no mental illness before this. And another commenter says, I'm really sorry to hear about this. Must be horrifying to have your life stripped away from you and feel so empty inside. Deep down, I'm wishing you well and that you pull through this. There are a few points, though, that I'd like to share. First, my childhood friend had something similar happen to him when he was 19. He tripped on mushrooms and he went to a very, very dark place from which he didn't fully return for years. He gradually faded from my life, largely because I was living overseas. But when I returned home a few years later, I contacted him and we reunited. He was a sober, solid dude that oozed gravitas. There's no guarantee how this will turn out, but recovery is possible. Hang in there. Second, there's a lot of blaming going around, which I find frustrating and naive. You must have had some underlying mental illness, the shaman was bad, the medicine was bad, you needed to do more shadow work, blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry, but while that can be to blame, another aspect that powerful medicine also carries powerful side effects. Having a bad trip is an intrinsic risk of ayahuasca. Everything might have been good. You might have done what you needed. You just hit the lottery and have to deal with it. From what you've written, it's not worth nitpicking about what it could have been. I suggest you just go on with your life, and in that, I wish you all the best. And the OP replied and said, thank you for your reply. I agree. You don't know what you're going to get, and sometimes things go south. It's a risk. I never in a million years thought this could happen, yet here we are. It was my fault for not doing enough research ahead of time. I'd never even heard of people getting hospitalized because of it. People only like to talk about the good stuff. Hence why I'm posting my experience to spread awareness that things can go wrong even if you feel safe going into it. And then we don't get an update for about 2 months, but 2 months later, the OP comes back with another post titled Ayahuasca Warning. And let's get into it. 9 months after ceremony, and it's like my whole life has been taken from me. I used to be filled with love, joy, and creativity, and now my cup is completely empty. It's like living without the soul. I can't even enjoy music anymore, which used to be my everything. I feel foolish for taking the medicine when I don't need it. I think of my past self every day and I wish I could have that bright light back. I only live in the shadows, now hidden away. It's humiliating to lose everything and feel hopeless for it to return. I almost committed S-word 4 months after the ceremony when the psychosis never ended, and now I'm terrified of death, as I could constantly only perceive that I would spend eternity in hell. This has been worse than a nightmare. Choose wisely if the medicine is right for you. And now let's get into some of the top comments. One user says, posting this continuously will not make it go away. You are just instilling fear in people that would benefit from the medicine. I would strongly suggest you go and have another ceremony with a proper shaman that can diagnose attachments and remove them. Your case sounds like a typical case of energetic parasitism. These things feed on your misery. And the OP replies and says, I'm just trying to spread awareness. I know this medicine can save lives, but it can also ruin them. If I heard the horror stories that I'm hearing now from people, I would have taken more precaution. And I am reading this story right now for you guys for that sole purpose of, sharing this OP story and making you guys know as well the risks of taking such drugs. I mean, I really don't like how this one commenter said, go take more of the drug that hurts you. I don't think doubling down would do any good. I think the OP just needs to consistently go to therapy, go to a psychiatrist, and really try to work this out with more proven methods, I would say. I'm not saying like all psychedelic usage is bad, but there are risks. And for some reason, a lot of those risks are kind of, thrown to the wayside. I feel like people don't talk about the possible risks of psychedelic use often. And so everyone watching, if you're ever, thinking about partaking in psychedelics, please do your research and be wary that, it's not all sunshine and rainbows and things can go bad and possibly ruin your life. But then the OP posts another update one day after, and the post is titled, Never Live a Normal Life Again. And this post also includes a picture of a barren looking tree in the middle of nowhere. I don't really understand the meaning of that, but I just thought that was worth adding because the OP posted that alongside it. And the post reads, Hi everyone. I went to an ayahuasca ceremony on my birthday last year. I went into a very intense psychosis that was extremely amplified by the medicine and lasted for half a year. It was terrifying. My personality and thoughts were completely changed, and it got so bad that my body would convulse uncontrollably and my heart would pound and hurt. I didn't sleep for 2 weeks. It's completely ruined my life. Since then, I've stabilized, but I lost everything. My dance/music businesses, my partner, and now my soul tribe is falling away. I've never wanted to die before, but I just feel like a zombie. I'm terrified of death now to feel lost in this new personality and loop for eternity. It's been like a horror show. I can't believe this happens to people, and it's shattering that it does. I just want to be myself again, to feel free again. My heart goes to all of you who battle with this. Giving up has never been an option for me, but holy shit, it's not living when you're like this. And man, it's just so depressing. I mean, the OP said, I want to be myself again. And it's so terrifying to think that, you can get lost in your own mind which is what happened to the OP. Like, the OP doesn't feel like themselves. They've lost a piece of themselves, and that is so sad and so scary. And then the OP posts 1.5 months later, titled "The Aftermath of Going Through a Drug-Induced Psychosis. Can anyone relate?" Imagine humans were trees, growing, reaching, fruiting. As we get older, so do the branches, the leaves, the flowers, becoming older, wiser, stronger, more resilient, started to become unique, a home. Each part that grows and births a new creation of life represents a different path, value, interest, dream, skill, creative aspiration, etc. Like a library of everything that makes up who we are and who we've decided we want to be. Then one day, we get struck by friggin' lightning. Everything dies. All the work of becoming gone. All the fruit bared falls to the ground, and we are left unclothed, dead, with no way to get back what was destroyed. The roots stay in the ground and connections remain, but we will never become the ancient tree that we could have, should have, or grown to be. This tree has been shocked and traumatized. Life will inevitably grow again, but it won't ever be the same. That empty, hollowed, burned tree will always be a part of that lifetime. And now let's get into some of the top comments. One user says, "This is very eloquent and seems very accurate. Do you mind me asking how far on the other side of this you are? Was it a first episode? I hope you are healing." And then the OP responds and says, "It was my first episode that lasted about 6 months. I can work again, my memory's back, I can enjoy time with my friends. But it's like the richness of life is missing. Love music, art, nature, spirit. Like a cord has been cut between me and life. I honestly don't think there is an other side of me. Everything's just different now. I am different now. It's more of an acceptance of what is and gratitude that I can function in the world again." Another commenter says, 6 months is still quite young in recovery. It might also be worthwhile exploring if it's kicked up some other health issues if you can. Adrenal fatigue, if you're fighting back tears quite often, pseudo-bulbar effect might be kicking your arse, etc. My cortisol levels were all over the place for my first few years of recovery. I have found acupuncture and physical therapy have both been helpful for getting back into my life and body." And the OP responds and says, "The psychosis of whatever it was lasted 6 months. It has been a full year. It's just what it's like not being in it anymore." And then about 1 month later, the OP posts a post that's titled "Afterlife." And they say, "What do you think of the afterlife? The scariest part of my psychosis was that it brought me to believe I would be stuck in an eternal loop of torture in a place called the void after I pass away. I actually experienced living in this place, in this reality, for months. It was worse than any horror film. Now I am terrified of death. Sometimes I feel like I'm just waiting for my life to be over since the accident, but then what? The mystery of it all used to be so beautiful to me, but now my brain is so messed up, I'm terrified of the unknown and my new belief systems. I've been very spiritual my whole life, and now prayer music, etc. is out of the question. Like my ability to connect with something greater now is non-existent and somehow doesn't apply anymore. mostly because I experienced something that represents hell for so long, resulting in my emotions being cut off like love. It has been a whole year since I have felt love. Sorry for this little rant. Any thoughts? And then no one comments on the OP's post here, but the OP disappears for a year. But a year later, the OP comes back and with an update, and let's get into it. Update. It's almost been a year and a half since the ceremony. I am relieved to say that I have come out of the other side. I really had no hope, but gracias, adios, it changed. It was around the year mark when I finally felt in control of my mind again and could feel emotions other than fear and anger. I'm no longer on any medication and living life again. I am well enough to work, and I'm now traveling on my own and rediscovering myself and my connections to life. I've been dancing and singing again and really pushing myself towards creativity and igniting that flame. We all have our own way through healing, and mine is definitely through dance and connections. I still don't feel as I once did, but there's been a huge acceptance of myself, and I've let go of a lot of regret. I did not do any special therapies. I actually feel I wasted a lot of money on different treatments. I just had to be patient and change my external environment for eventually the internal to change with it. I've gotten an overwhelming amount of people messaging me saying something similar has happened to them. I hope this post will help spread awareness so people can take this plant very seriously and know the risks. I also wanted to mention that what happened is no fault or doing of the shaman and the people holding the space. They do an incredible job and are very experienced. I respect and still love this community immensely. Things can go wrong no matter how well this space is being held. And this is the last we have ever heard from the OP, but God, just such a terrifying Reddit thread. I mean, I'm just happy she came out the other side and she finally feels like she is in control of her life again. But man, this could have been bad. I've read many Reddit posts of people taking whatever drug and it, triggers a psychosis of sorts and they lose everything. They lose their mind, they go crazy, they end up in jail or passed away or etc. I've heard this was the best case scenario, but hopefully this is a lesson for a lot of you watching. If you didn't know the risks of psychedelics, now you do. It is very risky, and if you ever do partake, please just know the risks. I'm not saying they're all bad, but personally, I just think it's important for you, to just spread this kind of message, that psychedelics and really any drug use has major risks that should not be, discounted. Yeah, I'm just super glad the OP is doing better now. I hope they have continued to improve their life and get their life back together. But yeah, on to the next one. Am I the asshole for calling my best friend creepy for sleeping with my little sister? Originally posted to Am I the Asshole? And the post reads as follows. Hi Reddit, I'm honestly at a loss right now and need some outsider perspective. So my 27 female parents died in a car accident a few months ago. And now my sister, Lily, 18 female, is staying with me in my apartment. I love having Lily here. I didn't get to see her as much after I moved to the city where we're currently living in my job. It was a much smoother transition than I expected. I reintroduced her to my best friend Cole, 27 male, almost right away, and they seemed to get along fairly well. My sister's birthday was in July, and the night after it, she went to a new 18 plus club that opened in our area. I didn't think much of it and just wanted her to be safe. After that night, Lily seemed more stressed, and I assumed it was because of her first year at college coming up. She's taking online courses for the first year, and just tried to give her advice on how to handle it. Yesterday, after Cole came over to drop off some brownies he had baked, my sister came up to me with tears in her eyes and admitted that she had bumped into Cole on the night after her birthday, and they ended up sleeping together. I was shocked, but from how sad and ashamed Lily seemed, I asked if Cole had taken advantage of her. Lily said no and that it was 100% consensual, but Cole asked her to keep it a secret. Lily didn't want to stress me out and was afraid of me being mad at her, but she couldn't hold it in much longer. After reassuring Lily that I wasn't mad at her and that she was completely right for telling me, I went to my room and angrily called Cole. I yelled at him over the phone and told him how creepy it was that he had intimacy with my freshly 18-year-old sister, and that he was way too old to be messing around with girls her age. We went back and forth for a bit before finally hanging up, and I went back to talking to Lily about this. Cole told his family and our mutual friends what happened. During the night and even this morning, I have been bombarded with texts from them saying that I was an ass for calling Cole creepy, and that since it was a consensual, intimate encounter with Lily being of age, it should not matter. I haven't shown Lily the texts. I don't want to make her feel worse than she already is. With how consistent everyone has been with calling me an a-hole, I'm wondering if I really am. So, am I the asshole for calling my best friend creepy for sleeping with my little sister? Edit. Yeah, I realized I made it sound like Cole and Lily only met after our parents' death, but she has known them before. Granted, they didn't talk much to my knowledge back then since she was a kid, and I didn't include her in what I was doing very often. Edit number 2, it's just Cole's mom, dad, and brother who are harassing me about this outside of our friends, and at this point, I think that he might have twisted the story for them to get this riled up over what I said. And now let's get into some of the top comments. One user says, generally, I'm going to assume any story where a bunch of people who barely know text you to berate you is a fake story. I also think it's weird that your supposed best friend has never met your family before. And the OP responds and says, he has. He's known Lily since she was 3. I'm also close with his family. And like I said, it's our mutual friend group yelling at me for what I said. And another user says, you said in the story that you had introduced him to her when she moved in with you. Anyway, yes, if this is real, and he has really known her since she was a child, then it's creepy. And the OP responds and says, I meant reintroduced since she hasn't seen him in a while. Like I said until now, I have not really seen my sister due to my job and be decently far from where I used to live with my parents and my sister. And someone else says, 100% creepy. Also, she just had a massively traumatic event happen. He also told her to lie to you knowing that she just lost her parents. Highly manipulative and weird. He isn't a good guy. Not the asshole. And someone replies and says, also adding it's creepy AF that he asked her to keep it a secret. What the hell? He knew exactly what he was doing. Cole is not your friend, OP. and you really need to look at your circle and question those who are defending him. And someone else says, why would his family get involved? I always question the post that the OP's phone blowing up. I don't know anyone or have family members who do something so ridiculous as blow up someone's phone, but obviously there are folks out there who have nothing better to do. And someone else says, not the asshole. Edit. To those who don't seem to get how creepy this is, let me break it down for you. This young woman just lost both of her parents in a traumatic accident and had her entire life upended by having to move in with her older sibling, which means she is not only traumatized, but extremely vulnerable. That's not even to mention that not only is the person she slept 9 years her senior, he is also a close and trusted family friend who is very close to her older sister, which puts him in a position of influence over her, a position which he used to get close to her and then slept with her, literally the day that she turned 18, which by the very definition of the word is manipulative. Was she legally an adult who was able to consensually choose to have intimacy with an older man? Yes. No one is questioning her right to choose. However, her being legally able to make that choice in no way changes the fact that he is a disgusting, manipulating predator who took advantage of his position of influence over a grieving teenager in order to manipulate her to have intimacy with him, literally the day she turned 18. That's not even to mention that he obviously knew what he was doing was creepy, or they would never have asked the younger sister to lie and hide it from the OP. Is it technically legal? Yes. Is it incredibly predatory behavior and extremely creepy to sleep with someone 9 years your junior, literally on the day they turn 18? Also, definitively yes. If one of my friends had done this to my little sister, I would be absolutely furious, and they would immediately find themselves removed from my circle permanently. And then we get an update a few days later, and let's get into it. The update reads, "Hey Reddit, these past 4 days have been busy, but I'm back with an update. To start off with, I ended up talking to Lily about what happened that night, and she ended up revealing that shortly after I reintroduced Cole to her, he began texting her, saying he wanted to help her grieve. Lily had told Cole about her plan to go to that club, and by the time Cole had shown up, she was decently tipsy. Lily had woken up in Cole's bed the next morning, and after he had woken up too, he told my sister to lie about what happened by saying she was at a friend's house because I would consider it to be a betrayal of my trust if I knew they slept together. After further discussion, Lily and I decided that grief counseling was best for her. Lily said that she regretted for not getting it at the start because, to her, that's what started this. As for Cole's family and our friends, I decided to ask them what they were told by in 2 separate group chats. I was right that he didn't tell them what actually happened. Both his family were under the expression that Cole and Lily had told me already what happened at first and that I seemed okay with it. But when Lily wanted to talk further, I blew up on him out of the blue. I told them what actually happened, and while Cole's family seemed hesitant to believe me, they'd said that they would talk to Cole. As for our parents, they believed me, and while some apologized, some were saying that it shouldn't have been an issue in the first place because my sister was legal, so I had to drop those people. I have blocked Cole and I haven't confronted him further, but I'm preparing myself for the worst when I do. Also, to clarify some things, I am a woman first of all, and second for all, I don't think Cole had ever romantically liked me the past 15 years of us being friends. There just hasn't been any signs of that, but then again, this proves that I don't know him as well as I thought, so I don't know. Thank you all for the advice, and I'll update you again if anything more comes out of this. And now let's get into some of the top comments. One user says, "I'm sorry, but I'm going to need you to clarify if that's you paraphrasing her saying she woke up in Cole's bed, or if that is exactly what she said. Because if those are her direct words, and this nearly 30-year-old man immediately jumps to 'don't tell your sister,' it makes me see red flags all over this. It sounds like he did take advantage of your sister, and that you might need to ask her a few more pressing questions about the specific events of that night to be sure. Hell, a talk with a preferably female officer might be helpful to clarify the lines that seem a little blurred here." And the OP responds and says, "I am not paraphrasing. What she initially told me when she came home after leaving Cole's apartment was that she stayed at one of her friend's place since it was so late in the night and she didn't want to wake me up." And another user says, "It's creepy that their relationship started with him consoling her regarding the grief. Still feels like she was taken advantage of, emotionally, not physically, although you have no context between tipsy and her waking up in the bed. Creepy." And then the OP comes back a few days later with another update, and let's get into it. The update reads, "I wanted to post an update a few days ago, but I felt emotionally and mentally exhausted. Per your guys' advice, I asked Lily if she actually remembered having intimacy with Cole, and she said that she remembered Cole buying her a drink. Then later on, Cole convinced Lily and her friend, who was tagging along with her, to let Lily go home with him. Lily remembers getting in the Uber and being inside of Cole's living room and bedroom, but not the intimacy itself. I mentioned that it's possible Cole drugged her with that drink, and if he did, then it's our word and Lily can press charges against him. Lily said if she did, she would want to press charges against Cole. We both got a bit emotional afterwards, and I apologized to Lily for not noticing that something was wrong when it first happened. As for Cole's parents, they threatened to cut him off financially if he didn't tell them the truth, and Cole admitted to what Lily said in the first post. Cole's parents apologized to me over the phone, and I told them what Lily said, and if he did drug her, then there's a possibility that we'd be pressing charges against Cole. They seemed to accept that and apologized one more time for harassing me before hanging up. Also, while clearing my phone of Cole-related things, pictures, videos, calendar dates, etc., I remembered a time when he was picking me up for a concert when we were 18 or 19. He looked at my outfit when I got into the car and mentioned how easy it would be for someone at the concert for them to rip it off and take advantage of me. I'll be honest, I was far more timid and more afraid of confrontation, so despite feeling weird about his comment, I brushed it off so we wouldn't fight over it. So there's one red flag I missed and regret not saying about it. Like I said in the last update, thank you all for your support and advice. I'll update you guys if anything major comes up. Edit. Oh, and I'm changing all of my passwords. Probably my apartment door lock too, that Cole has access to, just in case he tries anything. And now let's get into some of the top comments. One person says, Jesus Christ. Saying the guy was a creep was such an understatement. He belongs in jail. And someone else says, ugh, I'm so sorry for you and your sister are having to deal with this on top of everything. I would maybe get some legal advice if you plan on moving forward with pressing charges. Also, get a R-word kit done, mainly to check for STIs, and it's most likely too late to get any DNA or other evidence, including evidence of being drugged. Depending on where you are located, I'm in the US, and from my experience, going straight to the police even a few days following the assault can lead to a never-ending he said, she said argument, and your sister will have to recant that night over and over and over again. That said, I strongly believe in justice, and it is very clear that your sister was taken advantage of. I would personally look into next steps for pressing charges. Again, I'm so sorry, and just know that people like Cole know what they're doing and how to hide their true selves from others. So none of this is your fault at all. I wish you and your sister nothing but the best. And this was the last post we had ever received from the OP, so I really wonder what ended up happening. Did the OP's ex-best friend, Cole, end up in jail or press a charge against him? Hopefully he ended up in jail. I mean, this guy is a complete creep, and who knows who else he's possibly taken advantage of, you know? I mean, if he took advantage of his best friend's little sister, he could have many more victims, which is so sad to think about. But hopefully the victims come to light and, you know, tell the police what he did, also press charges, and hopefully he goes to jail for a long time. And I hope that the OP and the OP's little sister are doing better now. Strangest thing that has happened in my life. Preface: this is not a creepypasta. This is not made up. I'm not trying to promote anything. I don't care about karma. I don't care about attention. Everything I'm about to write is 100% true. Last year, I went to Dubai with my girlfriend and my best friend. When you land, they give you a SIM card with a limited amount of mobile data. I didn't care about it, but my girlfriend took hers and so did my friend. They both put them in their phones and activated them. Even though we kept using our regular mobile data until we got to our apartment. The first 3 days were completely normal. On the 4th day, we had our desert safari booked. The reservation was under my name, with my Romanian phone number and everything. The driver picked us up, took us into the desert, all that stuff. At one of the stops, there was a guy offering photos with a falcon. If you wanted one, you paid and he'd let you hold the bird for a picture. I politely said no. He kept insisting. Same answer. Later that night, while we were having dinner before heading back, after it had already gotten dark, the same guy came up to us again. This time, way more pushy, asking if we were really sure we didn't want a photo. Again, no thanks. We got back to the apartment, showered, went out for a walk, then came back. As crazy as this is going to sound, and again, I have absolutely no reason to make any of this up, I have nothing to gain from it, and the three of us are still confused about it to this day, but it was around 2 or 3 in the morning. We were literally watching an episode of Black Mirror when my girlfriend's phone started ringing. She answered it and put it on speaker. Nobody said anything. All we could hear was breathing, almost like a faint hissing sound. We said, "Hello?" Nothing. So we hung up. The call came to her Dubai number, the one from the SIM card she got at the airport. She had never used that number. She hadn't called anyone with it. Nobody had called her before, and she didn't even know what the number actually was. We decided to save the number and check the WhatsApp profile picture. And there is a profile picture they attached. I'm going to blur this guy's face because I don't know who this guy is, but it's a picture of some guy. I did a reverse image search out of curiosity. It turned out to be the picture of the president of the UAE. Oh, well, then I'll unblur it. Obviously, it wasn't actually him. That's not the point. Here's the part that still creeps us out. Among the reverse image search results on Google and Yandex, there was an Instagram account that had posted that exact same picture. We opened the account, and honestly, I still get goosebumps thinking about it. The last post on the account was from 3 years earlier. The profile picture was the same one as above, but the last post itself was a picture of the Falcon guy from the safari. I can say with 100% certainty that it was him. Same place we had visited, same clothes, same Falcon. We never got another call after that, and the rest of the trip was completely normal. Any thoughts? Any explanation? And now let's get into some of the top comments. One user says, maybe she'd dropped the package that the SIM came in. The phone number is often printed on it. And the OP says, no. This would have been plausible if the safari trip happened the first day, but it was on the 4th. We dressed casually. Totally different from the first that we landed, so no. Another person says, safari bookings, drivers, and camps share contact info aggressively for logistics, photo delivery, group chats, follow-ups, reviews, etc. Your reservation was under your name, but the driver picked you up. You were at the apartment. Passports get scanned for the SIM activation anyway. The ecosystem is leaky as hell. Many groups end up in vendor WhatsApps without realizing it. New tourist SIMs, the free/cheap DU, ones handed out on arrival, also hit spam lists or recycled contact lists extremely fast. It doesn't require hacking. It's just how the loose, commission-driven tourism machine operates. And the OP replies and says, I get what you say, very plausible, but we were staying in an Airbnb rented by someone private. No one at the accommodation asked for a passport/ID. Also, the safari trip was as well, without any passport/ID verification. The only thing where the SIM could be associated with their passport was indeed at the airport. But still not enough for the story. I don't know. Another user says, that does sound weird, but to be fair, I wonder if that's not a very commonly used picture amongst people in the region. So that you got called by a random number that happened to use that profile picture? Because when I Googled reverse searched it, I also get many random websites such as Facebook, X, and Instagram pages. Maybe the specific Instagram showed up in your reverse search results because that guy was in your vicinity. I think we need someone from the UAE to clarify if it's common to use that image as a profile picture. It's still a weird coincidence. Either way. And someone else says, OP has been offered a number of plausible scenarios but seems determined to deny any of them. What answer do they want? Ghosts? Assassins? Ghost assassins? And someone else says, I think your Dubai number was leaked to the weirdo somewhere. And the OP replies and says, that's what I'm thinking, but how? Or just a pure coincidence? But I guess there is a bigger chance to win the lottery than this to happen. And another user says, it's simple. They were likely tracking your movements because your girlfriend is attractive and they knew her location constantly while in country and wanted to snoop on your browsing habits while in country. Why else would the Falcon guy show up randomly later and hassle you? He didn't expect her to be accompanied by others, and he's not accustomed to being told no, and only knows how to be aggressive to get his way. Still pissed and being denied, he did a creepy, heavy breathing phone call later in the middle of the night. It's definitely a good thing she was never out of your sight while you're visiting. People go missing all the time. Creepy indeed. Also, the whole Falcon photo thing was likely a ruse to get additional photos of each of you for a governmental database. People aren't always what they seem. Not wanting the sim and not wanting your photo taken, to them it was fishy, and you're definitely a spy on a mission. And unfortunately, the OP has not updated us on what ended up happening or what the creepy phone call was or who the guy was or what happened. So I'm super sorry to leave you guys on a cliffhanger, but what do you guys think? I read every single comment, so comment down below what you guys think. Who do you think this guy is? Who made the phone call? How do they know where they are? And just what's the motive behind all of it? I'm interested to hear what you guys think. And all right, guys, that wraps up some insane true Reddit threads. I really appreciate you guys watching. And this video was dark, depressing, and insane. Please leave your comments down below on what you thought about today's video. I read every single comment, so please comment down below. I appreciate all of the feedback, support, criticism, whatever. I just like reading your guys' comments. And like I said, thank you guys so much for watching. From the bottom of my heart, it means the world. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel and follow my Instagram and follow me on Spotify. It really does help so much. And if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you will enjoy some other videos on the channel. So go check out some other videos on the channel. And yeah, I just want to say once again, thank you guys so much for watching. And this was Snook. And I'll see you next time. Bye. Most people think the internet's darkest websites are hidden somewhere on the dark web, but a lot of them aren't hidden at all. They're public, anyone can access them, and some of them have been sitting online for over a decade, waiting for innocent people to stumble upon them and witness something horrific. The disturbing part isn't only the disturbing contents of the website, but it's the people behind them. People documenting their violent fantasies, obsessions, conspiracy theories, or, in some cases, their final words before committing murder. Today, we're diving into the internet's darkest websites. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And let's get into it. Free World Alliance. Somewhere right now is a 30-something-year-old living in a dark, dingy basement. Probably their parents, surrounded by empty energy drinks, beer cans, and other adult paraphernalia. They're isolated from friends, family, the entire world. They are spiraling into an abyss they can't crawl out of, going further into an inescapable madness. This may sound like your average Reddit user, detached from a community of people in real life. They need somewhere to share what's on their mind. And while I'm sure plenty of them exist there, some people need to take it further than Reddit. They just have too much to say, too many thoughts on their mind, and too many of them way more explicit than even Reddit can handle. Welcome to Free World Alliance. When first opening, it's like a tsunami of flashing colors that will either hypnotize you or give you a headache. It gave me the latter. In big, bright, bold letters, the words Free World Alliance cover almost the entire page, as well as a logo for whatever that is. It seems vague and doesn't give any impressions of anything wrong or creepy, but just a quick scroll down and whatever you thought Free World Alliance meant quickly disappears. What was already a wall of colors and shapes becomes even more chaotic as the page is packed to the brim with what looks like one long run-on sentence that someone vomited into a journal. But instead of a private notebook, they bought a domain and made it available for anyone to see. That is, if you can read it. The moving rainbows are still flashing in the background, and the wall of text being written in white doesn't make it any easier to read. Once I can make out what it says, I quickly realize that it makes no sense. But besides that, the language is vile. I can't share a lot of it because it's honestly too explicit, but some lines that aren't so terrible and worth sharing are, Americans are all maggot-ridden freaks since they are born. Within days to weeks to months, degenerate into total zombies. Or, a toddler keeps their fingers and toe muscles and has to be put in a rubber toddler suit with everything else being the same as the babies. And that's just half of it. A lot of it is very intimate in nature, especially about women. There's no clear message or point, but it's all very objectifying and just gross. And then along with that is a lot of talk about babies, but obviously not in a cute or wholesome way, but rather about how they're zombies, that they need to be hurt or changed in some ways. The whole thing is creepy as hell, and it only gets worse. The more I look at it, the more this world opens up. I see the same type of language that pops up, and a lot of words are repeated over and over again, like they talk a lot about pixies, lure girls, zombies, and denizens. It's like they're creating their own fantasy world with mythical creatures that they've created. But there's nothing whimsical about this. It just gets alarmingly more deranged. Not surprisingly, a lot of it revolves around extreme conspiracy theories, like the Illuminati. But even with the parts on that, it goes beyond what an average conspiracy theorist believes in. On one page it says, Supreme Magic Spellbook, first in both text and pictures. For magic, magic book, Scientology, and Illuminati, not even showing up at all. Even if you're lying about it, Google, you shouldn't be lying about it even if you think it's going to help. It's not. All it causes is dyskinesia and disconnection from reality. Stop helping them produce zombies like the news always does. I mean, that's just light work for Free World Alliance. Moving on from the rambling gibberish on the Illuminati, the government, and zombies, there's also multiple sections that include images of German hate symbols with headers above it that say, Flag of the Free World Alliance. It does look like the symbol is flipped and not the original symbol that the Germans used, but that doesn't really decrease how disturbing it is. especially when I scroll down a little more and see multiple sections where they've uploaded pictures of state laws on intimacy between an adult and someone who is not an adult. Their commentary on that is pure anger. I can't even say what they wrote because they mentioned the word that sounds like grape probably 10 times in just one paragraph. But basically, they're extremely upset that it's illegal to engage in that. And that's just one section. I searched up that word and it comes up 45 times on that site. And each piece with it just gets more offensive than the last. Now, clearly, whoever created the Free World Alliance is much less than stable. I'm sure there's mental illness behind it, especially with how much of it is just rambling with no beginning and end. But how much of the disgusting and depraved language can be excused because of that? Because not only is it horrifying, there's just so much of it. At one point on the site, they list at least 100, if not more, websites listed, each one with descriptions of what they are and who they'd be useful towards. Each one is created by the same person. Some examples are Magic Guild, for people who want to be blacksmiths as well as already being a pirate. 9/11 Conspiracy Theory, for 9/11 conspiracy theorists. Society of Wizards, for complete and utter perverts. Tell her she has to read through the whole thing to understand how good it is. That is just 3 of many. And each single one is just as long as the first one I came across. Tens of thousands of words of either complete nonsense or misogynistic, violent, and downright terrifying rambling. Like I started this story with, this person has to be unemployed and most likely living in their mother's basement. There's no way someone who works full-time would have enough time on their hands to do all of this. My theory is correct based on a couple things I found on the website, such as, I am still supported by my parents though. Kill any who think I should and not be able to accept donations, or the bank will take all your money away, and Scientologists will kick you out of your house. But digging deeper into this, I was able to find out more information than just that. More details on who is behind the Free World Alliance and its insanity. In the section where they go into each website, one line says, "For parts of my life story, Pinnacle of the Dragon data." Upon clicking that link, I'm brought to a site where I'm first met with a huge star-shaped symbol that is recurring on the other sites as well. Below that it says, Pinnacle of the Draco data. Pindar is Allah Arawa Viakad. I'm not sure if he's referring to the ancient Greek poet when he says Pindar, but obviously, whoever this is not him. What is true though is that Allah Arawa Viakad is whoever is behind all of this. Of course, it's most likely that's a pseudonym for him. I find it very unlikely that's what's written on his birth certificate. But what does seem likely is that the picture below this one is taken of himself. Along with the photo, he gives a long list of descriptions of himself, such as personality, always likes to be supreme, but will always stand corrected honestly and maintain power, referencing past successes and, if necessary, future prophecy and eternal angelic expectations of Allah's eternal power, which was never really contested by pixies or archangels. Again, nothing is really making sense. That doesn't give me an accurate picture of who he is, other than most likely suffering from a mental illness, which is not breaking news. But scroll down a little more, and something shifts. There's a change. It's subtle, but it's there. Under a header that says, "A short story about me, Allah," there's a long, extensive couple of paragraphs. But this time, it's coherent, and it actually makes sense. We can actually get an idea of who this is. It reads, "In fall 2003, when I was a freshman in college, actually born April 1st, 1985 AD, I did not believe in any of this conspiracy nonsense until I was near the end of an infamous video game called Deus Ex. There, the primary characters, explain how the 20th century was ruled by corporations, governments, and international organizations. I thought deeply on these lines, realizing that if one organization had control of enough power, then it would be able to effectively rule the world in secret. I first looked up Majestic 12 Conspiracy, the faction in the game with the most power. I found only links to Deus Ex. However, when I looked up Illuminati Conspiracy, I felt sick to my stomach because of how many links it brought up on Google. That is when my search for truth about the world around me began. I became a conspiracy theorist addict, but I wasn't quite sure if it was real. I began to follow links to websites with luminous knowledge. Alice Bailey began to convert me into Luciferianism as I read about how the snake in the Garden of Eden was good for freeing us from our bondage to a false paradise of ignorance. The Illuminati were in resonance with me about their hatred of false religions like the Catholic Church. For a while, I thought the Illuminati were good and fighting evil, but not yet in control of the world. I kept on stumbling over conspiracy theories about 9/11, but at the time it seemed ludicrous that the government would attack their own people. After a while, I finally began to nurture the possibility that 9/11 was caused by the government. So I went to the easiest and quickest source of information on the subject, Amazon book reviews. Again, my stomach sank as I saw 4.5-star reviews for almost all of the 9/11 conspiracy theorist books. I finally began to investigate that. Soon after, it became real to me who caused 9/11. The Illuminati ruled the world, and they were evil. I didn't even tell my family that winter break. I did not want to make the horrors of this world real to them yet. I started following down a dark path of searching for the answer of who controlled the Illuminati. For a long time, I thought that evil reptilians ruled the world. Throughout this time, I was also studying the occult in the Book of the Law, trying desperately to unravel the mysteries of the everything I knew to exist. I was still an atheist at my core, though. I started doing lots of psychedelics with Eddie, Zoe, Duran, Nick, and Nate, following the direction from the Book of the Law to do strange drugs. I once tried to explain to them that the lava lamp was an anagram of the universe. A very funny occurrence. It's this point in his story that he begins to go into extreme detail about which drugs he did, how much of each one, and where it led him. Well, spoiler alert, it led him to making all of this, the Freedom World Alliance, and something else which he further describes here. I was ecstatic to know these secrets finally, but I know that the Illuminati know it as well. They are the secret rulers of this earth. I laid back, closed my eyes, and saw pure white. Then I felt as if my spirit was being pulled towards my spinal cord. I could not face annihilation. At that moment, I felt I had things that I needed to complete, like my movie script, so I sat up saying no, opened my eyes, and forced myself back into this world. I felt a sense of horror as I realized that I just denied myself perfect omniscience instead of being in an animal like a lowly angel. After a couple hours, I came down a little and wanted to get up again, so I took a whole bunch of DPT. I laid back and saw matrixy symbols pass from the right to the left before my eyes. Each symbol had a definite meaning, but it was completely analog. It existed in a field of symbols that formed the alien supreme computer that was sustaining this universe. They were all possible shapes and colors. These symbols passed for a couple of hours. As my trip wore off, I began to forget the details of the Matrix, but I still retained the fact that we are living in an alien hive. Since then, I have been refining my own proof to match the one they revealed to me. Here it is, Supreme Matrix Theory Abstract. He then links a whole other website for that theory, and as you guessed, it is all completely insane. But those parts, they seemed kind of lucid, which very quickly comes to an abrupt end when the next section begins with Harry Potter or Barely Sober. 'Cause I'm so smart, betrayers take 3 years to figure out how to press buttons on their UC to produce what I thought should be nanites replicated everywhere back in 2009 to fix global warming. Obviously, it's no surprise that this person is in this mental state, considering he did take a massive amount of drugs and is most likely battling some sort of mental illness on top of that. But it is scary to consider how that headspace could put him in a position where he acts on these dangerous and impulsive thoughts, and at times, the violent feelings, because he clearly has desires to behave in ways that are just disgusting. Not only the section mentioned earlier on his frustration towards laws that are there to protect people that are under the age of 18, but there's one website I came across that looks different from the rest. Lair Girls. At first, it doesn't seem that crazy. It actually looks much more normal than what we've seen so far. It's a huge list of links to random images, at least at first glance. But the more I click through these, and by the way, there is thousands of these, the more concerned I get. The common denominator among all of them is that it's 99% photos of women, sometimes normal pictures, and sometimes more explicit. Many are of adult women though, and it's not totally odd to be an adult man looking at adult content of women, so that's not totally out of the ordinary, but it doesn't stop there. There's multiple photos that, although they aren't explicit or outwardly gross, they're incredibly sketchy and leave a very unsettling feeling in the pit of my stomach. Like the multiple photos of children in kids' Halloween costumes, or the edit of a young Jeanette McCurdy, where he or someone else edited a photo of her so it looks more explicit. A photo of her as a teenager. All of this plus the content that's in the hundreds of websites he's created do not look good. In fact, it looks horrific. On one Reddit comment about the web ring, a user comments, "Just your ordinary internet mental illness." But is it really so ordinary? Mental illness may be something many people struggle with, and there may be other people that form their thoughts in ways that are equally as incoherent, but this goes beyond that. These websites give an idea of his desires, what he's interested in, and what he believes. It also points to someone so far removed from reality that it's unclear what they're capable of or what their intentions truly are. Free World Alliance and the other websites may point to a hazardously unstable person who's hiding in plain sight. Allah may be more than a 30-something-year-old who hasn't left his basement in months. He may be more than the average incel. He could be dangerous. But these sites have been up for a while. The first snapshot of it that's archived online is from September 24th, 2013, where it looks different, but it's most certainly still Allah. Over 10 years of uploading every thought, no matter how disturbing, obscene, or concerning it might be. So far, it doesn't seem like any of it has left the safety of the internet. Only time will tell if Free World Alliance makes its way off a computer and into the real world. Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Many of us wonder what our last words will be, who they'll be to, if they'll be meaningful, or if they won't matter at all. It's a daunting thing to face. Someday we'll utter our last breath, and we'll have no idea what those final sentences will be, or if anyone will remember them. This goes for anyone. We're all alike in that way. Well, almost everyone. For the people in prison who are awaiting their turn on death row, they have a whole other set of problems. Not only do they know when they're going to die, but they also have the added pressure of that huge question. What will my last words be? Everyone wants to say something profound before they take one last look at another human being, before they eat their last meal, or before they feel the last little bit of air. These last thoughts, the last words, and sometimes the last cries for help all have a place to live forever on the Texas Department of Criminal Justice's website. Here they've listed 600 last statements of inmates who were on death row in the state of Texas. Scrolling through the list, it's like walking around a cemetery. Masses and masses of people who all lived out their final moments in such similar ways. Though their lives each took different paths, and the reason for their incarceration was different for everyone, this one thing remained the same. They knew exactly when their last moment will be. They knew they had one last chance to say anything they wanted or anything they needed to, like Sean Derek O'Brien. In June of 1993, Sean and 5 other members of the Black and White gang kidnapped and murdered 2 teenage girls. The crime was brutal and horrific. These 2 girls, Jennifer Ertman and Elizabeth Penna, were only 15 and 16 years old when they were attacked in such gruesome ways. It's understandable that the family's victims were enraged and inconsolable. Their precious babies had been ripped away from them. Both girls' fathers had this to say about Sean, his friends, and their upcoming sentence. I hope the son of a bitch rots in hell. He deserves it. It doesn't make me happy, but this is the punishment he was given, and it's justifiable. I kind of feel numb in a way, knowing that I've been waiting for so long for this day to come. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. On the fateful day that Elizabeth's dad was counting down the days to, Sean had this to get off his chest. I do. I'm so sorry. I have always been sorry. It is the worst mistake that I ever made in my whole life, not because I am here, but because of what I did, and I hurt a lot of people. You and my family. I'm sorry. I have always been sorry. I am sorry. You look after each other. I love you all. Be there for one another. All right, but I am sorry. Very sorry. I love you too. All right. It doesn't take away the heaviness of what he did to those two innocent girls. No. In fact, it just makes it heavier. What he did was inexcusable. But reading through the last thoughts that ran through his head as he faced his death is still jarring. And he's not alone in feeling guilt, remorse, and shame. There's so many of these last statements that are filled with the same emotions, like Humberto Leal's last statement, which reads as follows: I'm sorry for everything that I've done. I've hurt a lot of people. For years, I've never thought that I deserved any type of forgiveness. Lord Jesus Christ in my life, I know He has forgiven me. I have accepted His forgiveness. I have accepted everything. Let this be final and be done. I take the full blame for this. I am sorry and forgive me. I am truly sorry. I ask for forgiveness. Life goes on, and it surely does. I'm sorry for the victim's family for what I did. May they forgive me. I don't know if you believe me. Life goes on. I am sure it does. To the man to the right of me, I ask for forgiveness for you. Life goes on. It surely does. I ask for forgiveness. I am truly sorry. That is all. Let's get this show on the road. One more thing. Viva Mexico. Viva Mexico. And Anthony Allen Shores. I'd like to take a moment to say I'm sorry. No amount of words could ever undo what I've done. To the family of my victims, I wish I could undo that past. It is what it is. God bless all of you. I will die with a clear conscience. I made my peace. There is no others. I would like to wish a happy birthday to Barbara Carroll. Today is her birthday. I would like to especially thank those that have helped me. You know who you are. God bless everybody until we meet again. I'm ready, Warden. But then I take a look at the other part of the website on what these inmates did and which crimes they committed. Humberto Leal was convicted on May 21st, 1994 of the abduction and murder of a 16-year-old girl in San Antonio. Not only did he kidnap and assault this poor girl, but the details are sickening. Humberto used a piece of lumber and a 35-pound chunk of asphalt to hurt her in ways that are just beyond gruesome. Now for Anthony Allen Shore, his case is no better. In some ways, it's even worse. On September 26, 1986, Anthony kidnapped a 15-year-old girl named Lori Tremblay, who was walking home from school when she was taken. He attempted to assault her and then followed that with strangulation until she sadly passed away. If that doesn't sound brutal enough, Anthony continued to basically do the same thing to 4 other girls, one of them being just 9 years old, all with strangulation. In fact, after Laura, he began to use a tourniquet with either a toothbrush or bamboo stick to tighten it. Why? Because in his words, I hurt my finger while murdering Tremblay. This granted him the legacy of the tourniquet killer. A legacy that ended with the words, God bless everybody, until we meet again, I'm ready, Warden. I don't know what's more disturbing. Reading someone's last words, or knowing that those words were uttered by someone so evil, so despicable, so sinister, that they leave the world with a clean conscience after committing such monstrous and heinous crimes. But these delusional and quite honestly full of apologies and remorseful statements are not unique to Humberto and Anthony. Hundreds of them all sound the same. And each time I click on what they did to be there in the first place, and more often than not, it's something so atrocious, it makes my stomach turn. It's not everyone though. There are others throughout the site that are different, less remorseful, but more so angry, and in some ways, even more haunting. Such as with the case Douglas Feldman. Douglas was arrested on September 22nd, 1999, after he had been cut off by a driver of an 18-wheeler. And instead of going about his day, he proceeded to pull up next to the truck and shoot him. 46 minutes passed after that incident, and Douglas had yet to calm down. He was still enraged, and now that the truck driver was gone, he had nowhere else to put all of his anger. At the same time, Nicholas Valquez, another truck driver, was at a gas station filling up his tank, truly just minding his own business, living his life as normal. I don't know if it was the fact that he was a truck driver, or it was just the first person he saw when he pulled into the station. But Douglas decided in his blinding rage that he was to shoot Nicholas as well. Clearly, Douglas is unwell, because all of this wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment thing he did, caused by such an immense road rage that he couldn't contain himself. This was who Douglas was. After the fact, he wrote 81 letters to a former girlfriend. And in one of them he says, "It feels wonderful to cause their death and to watch their pain. God forbid I ever had my finger on the button to launch a nuclear explosive device, because I guarantee that I would wipe as many of these bastards off the face of the planet as I'm able." But this insanity did not result in a ridiculous apology and asking for forgiveness. No. Douglas leaned further into his craziness when asked to give a last statement. He says, "I hereby declare Robert Stephen Everett and Nicholas Valquez guilty of crimes against me, Douglas Allen Feldman. Either by fact or by proxy, I find them both guilty. I hereby sentence both of them to death, which I carried out in August 1998. As of that time, the state of Texas has been holding me illegally in confinement and by force for 15 years. I hereby protest my pending execution and demand immediate relief." After his statement, and as he awaited his fate, his energy was incredibly nervous. His feet twitched under the sheet. He seemed to flinch as the drug entered his system, and then nothing. He finished his life without even a single trace of regret for the harm that he had caused. No guilt, only a fantasy that actually the people he murdered in cold blood had done him wrong. And that in the next 60 seconds, the warden would stop the whole thing and let him free. Of course, he was wrong. Most of these inmates are. Most have done horrible things. And while it can be argued whether death is really the right thing to do, it's not like they deserve a happy and peaceful life free of any consequence. But that's most. Because of course the judicial system is flawed, and there are statements that really make me question if it has failed some of these inmates in such a tragic and irreversible way. This statement from Cameron Todd Williamham says, "Yeah, the only statement I want to make is that I'm an innocent man, convicted of a crime I did not commit. I've been persecuted for 12 years for something I did not do. From God's dust I came, and to dust I will return. So the earth shall become my throne. I gotta go. Road dog. I love you, Gabby." And another one from Gary Graham. "I would like to say that I did not kill Bobby Lambert, that I'm an innocent black man that is being murdered. This is a lynching that is happening in America tonight. There's overwhelming and compelling evidence of my defense that has never been heard in any court of America. What is happening here is an outrage for any civilized country to anybody anywhere to look at what's happening here is wrong." But then there's the last statement of Terry Edwards. This one stood out for some reason, but it's short and chilling. "Yes, I made peace with God. I hope y'all make peace with this." That last sentence is filled with contempt. It's bleeding with frustration at the way his life is being handled, the way it's being ended, with no way for him to prevent it. He hopes the people watching this feel ashamed, guilty. He hopes they repent. Because Terry claimed, until the day he died, that he did not do what put him on death row. What's in his file is that he and his cousin robbed a restaurant and murdered 2 employees in the process, and Terry was the one that pulled the trigger. But according to Terry, what's on record is not what happened. He never admitted to being the gunman and insisted his cousin was behind it. His cousin, who did have a history of violent crime, something that Terry did not. That wasn't his only argument, though. The problem with the conviction began when the first forensic analysis came back with no evidence that suggested Terry had gunpowder residue on his hand. But with a further cross-examination, the analyst pretty much changed her mind. She said that one chemical was found that could have been from the gun, and Terry probably wiped away the other 2 or 3 elements that are usually found in a case like this, which was looked into by a former FBI agent who called bullshit. He said that made no sense scientifically, that there was no way Terry could have wiped away only 1 or 2 of the particles that would have proven him guilty. Besides that, the entire case was sketchy. The defense attorney had been involved in 3 other cases where the defendants were exonerated due to misconduct, including cases from the same forensic analyst that was handling Terry's case. These people were not reliable or competent at their job. Clearly, the even more pressing problem in Terry's mind was that his jury had been made up of all white people, creating racial discrimination. All of this combined, he wanted a stay of execution. He wanted the court to properly investigate this because he knew that he was innocent of the murder that would put him in that seat. But his cries and pleas were denied. Just 1 week before the execution, the attorney's office blocked him with any resources that were created for people in cases where the validity was questioned. And on January 26, 2017, the state of Texas carried out his capital punishment, leaving him no final chance at rectifying what he had done. None of these people listed on this website had any second chances. And when you do things like hurt children, murder your own family, or brutally assault someone, you don't really deserve one. But the stories like Terry's are genuinely heartbreaking. Even in the case that he had done it, that he had murdered those two people, there has to be the room for argument that maybe death doesn't have to be the only option. He wasn't a cold-blooded maniac like Douglas Feldman and Anthony Shore. Maybe it was a mistake, brought about by pressure from his cousin, something that he'll feel incredibly remorseful about the rest of his life. But that's impossible when it was cut short without even a second thought. Now his picture, his statement, and a final date will be listed forever on the Department of Criminal Justice's website, alongside the worst of the worst, true murderers, and evil monsters. They all died in the same chair, and they'll live forever on the same dark corner of the internet. And alright guys, that wraps up the internet's darkest websites. Let me know what you thought about this video down below. Did you enjoy it? Did you find it interesting? And what would you like to see in the future? Would you like to see another video like this in the future? If so, please comment down below. I appreciate all of the comments, criticism, feedback, everything. It really does mean the world. And make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. The channel subscriber goal is 1 million subscribers, so please subscribe. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. It means the world. And this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye.